Hey, JulesBlessedVegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So people, we are in the middle of a couple of different challenges. The first one is the overall October challenge, which is actually running through November 4th, where we were going to get out a tape measure and measure ourselves to either increase or decrease inches. In my case, it's decreasing, but I've got some people in here that are just trying to build up muscle, build up that bootay, and increase their inches. And you should certainly join us. It doesn't matter whether it's October or whether you're just getting here, you're right on time. The second one we just started yesterday, which was the Rainbow Produce Challenge. And that was for people to actually record how many fruit and vegetables they're consuming in any given group, color group, I should say, of God's plentiful bounty of fruit and vegetables. And you can look at yesterday's video for that and even get the chart that allows you to just write it down. But any piece of paper will do. Just write down and see if you are consuming a variety of vegetables, which of course would serve your body best. Okay, that said, I am on to a third topic, which I'm going to break into 3 parts, which is on the topic of shame. And I've mentioned before that I tend to come from a shame-based perspective. It's not about how I was raised per se. It's mostly my perception of the world, but it's real for me. And it doesn't haunt me all the time, but occasionally certain things will happen. Certainly yesterday I was very busy helping my husband, like for several hours and lots of driving. Today it was over 200 miles of driving, and again helping family and being mutually blessed for doing so, for sure. But I lost sight of my plan and immediately went to shame. Immediately started putting myself down and saying, oh my gosh, you're such a blowout and I can't believe it and you're so weak and all this horrificness. And then I had to drive, about 90 miles. And in that time that I was stuck in bumper to bumper traffic, I had a moment of grace to just say, you know what? You do not need to answer to anyone, okay? Nobody is putting you down. Nobody is judging you but you. And you have got to let go of some of this shame. Like, it in no way serves you, which I so understand. But it didn't make it any less true. So I thought, you know what? I have other videos on shame I don't even know how to locate. I'm going to get another one. And this is an excellent video for which I not only encourage you to look at, because of course I'll include it as a description of the video, but to maybe even save it, because each of the components in this video have a practice feature where you're actually encouraged to do the exercise and incorporate it. Now for me, because there's 10 life-changing ways to move through shame, I immediately want to do all 10 right away. I want to master all 10 of them. I want to do a checkoff list to show that I did it. Like, this is how my mind thinks. Okay, but that is not how to approach this. The best way to approach it is to literally find one, and maybe spend a few days or even a few weeks or even a month if you need to with it, which is why I'm encouraging you to share the video. Forgive me, to save the video. Or talk, actually save the talk so that you will be able to reference it again. All right, so that's what I'm going to try and do, because in my desire to divide and conquer, I will not be successful with it. It's another reason that I'm breaking it up into 3 parts, because the first part is essentially an introduction, and it's just getting to know shame and what shame is. The second part, which I will most certainly do tomorrow, is going even deeper into what shame is, and finally moving forward, which is what the third part is. But again, each of these components has a practice element, and I encourage you to choose one and maybe focus on it for you, if this is even true for you. Otherwise, you can certainly exit the video and catch me on another day. I always share more than one thing. Right now, this is shame. So first, the quotation mark is shame is soul-eating emotion, a soul-eating emotion. Ouch, right? And that is by philosopher Carl Jung. And finally, shame derives its power from being unspeakable. And that's by Brene Brown. And that's so sad, because like every perpetrator ever has said, shh, this is our little secret, and shh, or I'll kill you, and shh, because they'll all think you did it, like on and on. The guilt and horrificness of not wanting to speak it aloud. The idea that if we tell our truth, inevitably someone will judge us, shame us, condemn us, like the whole thing. And Lord knows, social media, we are in a current time where that is the game, right? People just pounce. They pounce, right? Dogpile on whoever said whatever, and far more painful than that. But okay, let's empower ourselves here. So it reads shame. It's such an uncomfortable feeling. So uncomfortable that you may not even want to read this post. You think that if you leave it hidden in the shadows outside of conscious awareness, maybe, just maybe, you can pretend it's not there. But it is. And for some of us, it's dug in deep. That's my story. If shame stays where it is, unseen and unexplored, it will continue to affect you. How? It's behind that self-critical voice in your head. Many unsatisfying dynamics in relationships, feelings of lack and unworthiness, and choices that keep you from fully living. Hello, guilty as charged on all 4 counts. Shame is so personal. It's a painful feeling of humiliation that you've done something wrong or that there's something disgraceful or embarrassing about you. Yes, it's a secret emotion that can sit in you like a poison. And the last thing you want to do is bring it out in the open. You think that all that will do is highlight your worst fears about yourself. I so get this article. But here's the possibility for you. The light that can begin to untangle shame. If you explore it skillfully, and again, these are 10 ways, right? 10 steps. If you navigate shame with wisdom and heart, you find tenderness, compassion, courageous vulnerability, and the relief that comes from no longer hiding from yourself or keeping yourself hidden from others in the world. Like, this is the option, and that's kind of what I tapped into. I'm driving 90 miles, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what? How come I was so vicious just now? How come I spent time with shame? How come I'm giving my power away? I don't need to do that anymore for that moment. So it reads, you move from feeling, oh, so separate and alienated to being more at ease with yourself in your own experience. The boundaries that disconnect you from everyone and everything begin to fall away. Almost like being born anew, you are open, light, and available to life. Who doesn't welcome that? You can make the choice to let your pain rule you by keeping it in the shadows, or you can befriend, explore, and welcome it into the light of conscious awareness. How? Here are 10 potentially life-changing ways to move through shame. You know, I so appreciate this because it reminds me of the 12-step program and what I've always loved about it. Yes, by all accounts, it's anonymous unless you tell people like me. But in any given meeting, there's no crosstalk where people are trying to fix you. They're not allowed to tell you were wrong in what you shared, like your truth is your truth. And that's so beautiful because there can be no shame in being able to freely share your truth. And because it's anonymous, people are far more inclined to be honest. And once you let that go, once you really feel like you were actually heard without consequence, people do let things go. It's very freeing, for real. All right, so this is part 1, getting to know shame. And that's what I'm going to share right now. So I'm going to talk about 5 of the steps. So again, I just encourage you to maybe focus on 1, and then remember each one of them have a practice, which is actually implementing a way to do the change. So number 1 is be a courageous explorer. This is actually something you can choose to focus on. If you're just beginning to explore shame, you're going into foreign territory. Just like the ancient adventurers who took to the sea not knowing what they would find, be courageous, curious, and open. And when it comes to pain, discover the most compassionate place within you to receive it. What is that small little area within yourself that you can actually receive it, again, without falling prey to self-criticism and all those things that were mentioned? So here's the practice. You set the stage for your exploration of shame. Okay, you bring your attention inside and you touch into the qualities of curiosity, wonder, openness, and compassion that are natural to who you are. Find them. Then stay with feeling them for a while. And for me, I think you would literally just think of a time, maybe for someone else, that you expressed curiosity or wonder. Sometimes we have to get outside of ourselves to recognize how to treat ourselves, openness or compassion, and then apply it to yourself in time. All right, number 2, find the gap. So again, this just might be one you'll choose. You might be very used to feeling shame, but you may not know it well. That's my story. In fact, you may have been trying to avoid it at all costs because it's so painful. But here we take a different approach by befriending your experience. What is shame exactly? How does it feel? How does it appear in your thoughts about the past and yourself? Answering these questions requires you to step back from being completely consumed by shame so that you can gain some psychological distance. It's the gap that begins to set you free. Imagine you're studying an object you've never seen before to figure out what it does. Just like that, create a bit of space between you and your experience of feeling shame. Now you're relating to shame in a new way. You can study, inquire about it, and see what it is. This feeling that's had such an impact on you. And here's the practice. Find a small gap between you and shame. See what you can observe in your experience and be curious about what you discover. Well, that's kind of what happened to me on the way home. All of a sudden, I separated myself from that immediate experience and was like, wait a second. That wasn't fair. That didn't serve us. What was that about? So I kind of get that one. I'm interested in that one. Let's go on. Number 3, what's the story? Shame doesn't appear from nowhere. It's a form of conditioning that inhabits your mind, heart, body, and spirit. Maybe you were somehow made to feel ashamed of yourself when you were young. Ashamed of who you were, your level of intelligence, your body. All of the above. There might be a story of shame that you've carried for a long time, but it's actually a role you've taken. And you've taken this on, and that's optional. You start to tell yourself that this shame story doesn't have to define you. Remember that who you are is not this story. Your essence is whole, not separate from anything, and boundlessly free. So here's the practice for this one. You stand up and feel yourself in that familiar story of shame. Yes, right now. Just try it. Now take a big step to one side and leave the story behind. Feel yourself minus the story. This is a possibility for you. That's so interesting. So many times people feel like they almost wear a badge of shame, right? Or a badge of pain or a badge of abuse. And they've got that badge on. And people need to know that that's who they are because that's what they went through. And they don't realize that that entire burden is only on them and that that badge is not serving them in any way. So I really understand that one. Sometimes people don't know who they are separate from the incident. They don't know who they are separate from the abuse. They don't know who they are separate from the weight. They don't know who they are separate from. I so get it. I so get it. And I think for me, that's part of, and it's funny, again, I wasn't heavy. I wasn't heavy as a kid. I really wasn't heavy, even in high school, even though I was told I was too heavy, and competitively, I understand why. I wasn't even heavy, like in my early, beginning of college. I went for broke. Like my 3rd year of college, and sadly for years to come. But that wasn't always my case. But because I've been heavy for so long, and because so much of my abuse took place before that age, before age 22, there seems to be a lack of safety. And I don't seem to know myself without this body of weight. And I'm so sorry for that. So that's a really interesting one. How can I move on as Juliana and still feel complete and free in my body without that body? The one that I built to supposedly protect myself, which it never did. Really interesting. Okay, number 4. How does shame live in your body? Oh, I didn't know. Every emotion has a physical component to it. So getting to know shame includes knowing how it lives in your body. It may take some time to discover the physical experience, of shame because it becomes so commonplace to you. Get quiet and bring your attention to your body. Then notice any physical sensation or places of numbness. You don't need to do anything about them. This is an exercise, and remember, each of these are individual exercises. This is an exercise in simply meeting in an open awareness what has been there anyway. It's about making friends with the physical part of shame. When you realize that you don't need to live the story of shame and you become aware of the sensations the heaviness of this identity begins to dissolve. It's the road to freedom. Wow, right? So here's the practice. As much as possible, 100 times a day if necessary, bring your attention into your body and just be with whatever is happening. There's no need to do anything, just simply be. I got to think about that. I got to think about that in regards to today and at what point I lost sight of my plan because I accidentally fell into just shame. I know for me, part of it was that I was so busy serving that my little kid was screaming, "When's our turn?" And again, that wasn't anyone's fault. I just got into business mode. But my little kid kept saying, "When do we get to play? And how about me? And how come they're all having fun and we're not?" And that resulted in me ultimately going to what I know as a reward, which is food. And I was sorry for that. So, all right. So those are the 4 that we're going to look at actually, because number 5 is a separate component. So let's go back a second. So first of all, just getting to know shame. Can you be a courageous explorer in a whole new world of even looking at your shame? 2, finding the actual gap in just recognizing how you can relate to shame in a new way. And number 3, what's the story? And can you actually stand and feel yourself in a familiar story of shame? And can you live separate from that shame? And number 4, how does that shame actually manifest itself in your body? Because every emotion has a physical component. I love that. All right, this is a story on shame, people. Again, check this article out. Can you choose one of those to focus on? I would love to know. If it's not your truth, yay you, but it has certainly been mine. So we'll do part 2 tomorrow. As always, like if you like. Join us if you haven't. Subscribe. Let me know in the comments below how I may support you, especially in prayer. And until we talk again, best of all, eat that rainbow, people, and know that you're blessed.